The summer of 2147 was the hottest summer the small coastal town of Namhae had ever seen. The ocean sparkled like a million tiny mirrors under the burning sun. And the children spent their days swimming in the cool water or hiding in the shade of old fishing boats. Taeho was 10 years old that summer. He was a quiet boy with messy black hair and skin knees from climbing too many trees. He lived with his grandmother in a small house near the beach, and he spent most of his time alone. The other children thought he was strange because he liked to read books about space and draw pictures of rockets in the sand. One evening, while Taeho sat on the beach watching the sunset, a moving truck stopped at the empty house next door to his grandmother's home. He watched with curiosity as workers carried boxes inside. Then he saw her. A girl his age stepped out of a black car. She had long dark hair and pale skin that seemed to glow in the fading sunlight. She stood very still and looked up at the sky, even though there was nothing there except clouds, turning pink and orange. Taeho's grandmother told him later that the girl's name was Hana, and that she had come to live with her uncle. She said Hana was from far away, and that Taeho should be kind to her because she did not know anyone in the town. The next morning, Taeho found Hana standing in her backyard, staring at a butterfly. She did not try to catch it. She just watched it with wide eyes, as if she had never seen such a thing before. "It is called a butterfly," Taeho said, walking closer. Hana turned to look at him. Her eyes were dark brown, almost black, and there was something strange about the way she looked at him. It was like she was studying him, trying to understand what he was. "Butterfly," she repeated slowly, as if testing the word on her tongue. "It is very beautiful." "You talk funny," Taeho said. He did not mean it in a bad way. It was just true. "I am still learning," Hana said. "There's much I do not understand about this place." Taeho sat down on the grass next to her. "Where are you from?" Hana was quiet for a long moment. Then she pointed up at the sky. "Far away." Taeho laughed. "Everyone is from somewhere on Earth. Are you from another country?" "Yes," Hana said quickly. "Another country." "Very far." From that day on, Taeho and Hana became friends. He showed her everything about the town. He took her to the beach and taught her how to build sandcastles. He showed her the old lighthouse on the cliff and the cave where fishermen said a sea monster once lived. He taught her how to catch crabs and how to skip stones across the water. But Hana was different from other children. She did not understand simple things. The first time it rained, she ran outside and stood in the water with her arms spread wide, laughing with pure joy. When Taeho asked her why she was so happy, she said she had never felt rain before. "Everyone has felt rain," Taeho said. "Confused. Not where I come from," Hana whispered. She asked strange questions too. She wanted to know why humans ate food 3 times a day. She wanted to know why people slept when it was dark. She wanted to know why Taeho's grandmother hugged him when he came home, and why it made him smile. "Because she loves me," Taeho explained. "Do your parents not hug you?" Hana looked sad when he asked this. "My people show love differently. We do not touch the same way you do." Taeho felt bad for making her sad, so he took her hand and held it tight. "Then I will teach you. This is how humans show they care about someone." Hana looked down at their joined hands. A small smile appeared on her face. "I like this," she said softly. The months passed, and their friendship grew stronger. Taeho protected Hana from the older boys, who made fun of the way she talked. He walked her home from school every day and shared his lunch with her when she forgot to bring her own. Hana helped him with his homework and told him stories at night about distant worlds and strange creatures. "These are just made up, right?" Taeho asked one night as they lay on the beach, looking up at the stars. Hana did not answer right away. She pointed at a cluster of stars in the distance. "Do you see that bright one? The blue one?" Taeho nodded. There is a planet there, Hana said. It has 3 moons and oceans made of liquid silver. The people there live for thousands of years, and they have ships that can travel faster than light. That sounds amazing, Taiho said, smiling. You should write books. You have a good imagination. Hana turned her head to look at him. There was something in her eyes that Taiho could not understand. It looked like sadness mixed with something else. Something like fear. Taiho, she said quietly, if I told you a secret, would you promise to keep it forever? Of course, he said. We are best friends. I would never tell anyone your secrets. Hana opened her mouth to speak, but then she stopped. She looked back up at the stars and shook her head. Maybe one day I will tell you, but not tonight. They lay there in silence, watching the stars move slowly across the sky. Taiho did not know it then, but those nights on the beach would become his most precious memories. He would hold on to them through years of blood and fire, through battles that shook the galaxy, through moments when death seemed certain. 2 years passed like this. 2 years of friendship, of laughter, of 2 children who did not understand how different they truly were. Then came Hana's 12th birthday. Taiho had saved his money for weeks to buy her a gift. It was a small telescope, old and scratched, but it worked well. He wrapped it in colorful paper and walked to her house that morning, excited to see her smile. But when he arrived, the house was empty. Taiho knocked on the door again and again. He walked around the house and looked through the windows. All the furniture was gone. All the boxes had disappeared. It was like no one had ever lived there. He found a single object on the back porch. It was a small silver pendant on a thin chain. The pendant had a strange symbol on it, something that looked like a star surrounded by flowing lines. Taiho had never seen anything like it. Under the pendant was a note written in Hana's careful handwriting. I am sorry. I have to go home. Please do not forget me. I will never forget you. Taiho sat on that porch for hours, holding the pendant in his hands. He did not cry. He just sat there, staring at the strange symbol, trying to understand why his best friend had left without saying goodbye. His grandmother found him when the sun went down. She held him close and told him that sometimes people had to leave and that it was not his fault. But Taiho did not believe her. He thought he had done something wrong. He thought Hana had left because of him. He put the pendant around his neck that night. He made a promise to himself that he would wear it every day until he saw Hana again. He would find her someday. He would ask her why she left. He would tell her that he forgave her. Years later, Taiho would learn the truth. He would learn that Hana was not from another country. He would learn that she was not even from Earth. He would learn that her real name was Yuna, and that she was a princess of an empire that spanned 1,000 stars. But that night, he was just a boy who had lost his best friend. He looked up at the stars and wondered which one she had gone to. He did not know that one day those same stars would burn with the fires of war, and he did not know that he would be the one to light them. 15 years had passed since the day Hana disappeared. The world had changed in ways that young Taiho could never have imagined. Humanity had reached the stars. They had built colonies on distant planets. They had met other species from other worlds. And they had learned that the universe was not a friendly place. Taiho was 27 years old now. He stood on the bridge of a military transport ship, looking out at the endless darkness of space. His face was harder than it had been as a child. His eyes held a coldness that came from seeing too much death. But around his neck, hidden under his uniform, he still wore the silver pendant. He had never taken it off. Not once in 15 years. The war had started 6 months ago. The Velen Empire, a civilization that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years, had decided that humanity was growing too fast. Human colonies were spreading across space like wildfire. Human technology was advancing at a speed that terrified the other species. The Velans saw humans as a threat that needed to be controlled, so they attacked. The first strike hit the colony of New Sol without warning. Velan warships appeared from nowhere and rained fire down on the planet. 50 million people died in a single day. Men, women, children. Families burned in their homes. Cities turned to ash. Taeho lost his grandmother in that attack. She had moved to New Sol to be closer to him when he joined the military. She died in her apartment, alone, while Velan soldiers marched through the streets, killing everyone they found. When Taeho heard the news, something broke inside him. And something else was born. Something cold and hard and filled with rage. He volunteered for the most dangerous missions. He fought in battles where survival seemed impossible. He watched his friends die around him, and each death made him stronger. Each death made him more determined. The Velans were powerful. Their technology was thousands of years more advanced than human technology. Their ships were faster, their weapons were stronger, and their soldiers were trained from birth to fight. Every military expert said the war was hopeless. Every politician talked about surrender, but humans did not surrender. They fought back with everything they had. They used tricks and traps. They turned asteroid fields into minefields. They attacked supply lines and communication centers. They refused to give up, even when they were outnumbered 10-1. Taeho became known for his impossible victories. At the Battle of Kepler Station, his unit was surrounded by 200 Velan soldiers. They had only 30 men and almost no ammunition. Taeho led them through the maintenance tunnels of the station, set the reactor to overload, and escaped on a stolen Velan shuttle while the station exploded behind them. 200 Velan soldiers died. All 30 of his men survived. Stories like this spread through the human forces. Soldiers started calling him the Unbroken because no matter how bad things got, he never broke. He never gave up. He always found a way. The Velan commanders began to fear him. They'd put a price on his head. They sent their best soldiers to hunt him. But Taeho killed them all. Far away, in the heart of the Velan Empire, Princess Yuna watched the war with horror. She was no longer the quiet girl who had played on the beach with a human boy. She was a diplomat now, trained in politics and negotiation. She wore the elegant robes of Velan royalty and spoke with the careful words of someone who understood power, but she had never forgotten Taeho. She had never forgotten the boy who taught her how to catch crabs and skip stones. She had never forgotten his smile, his kindness, his warmth. In her private chambers, hidden away where no one could see, she kept a small photograph of him. A photograph she had taken on his camera, one summer day long ago. Yuna had argued against the war. She had stood before the High Council and told them that humans were not a threat. She had told them about her time on Earth, about the beauty of human emotions, about their capacity for love and friendship. But the Council had not listened. They saw humans as animals, as insects to be crushed before they became a problem. When the first reports came back from the front lines, Yuna could not believe what she read. Human forces were not surrendering. They were fighting back. And they were winning battles that should have been impossible. She started to hear a name repeated in military reports. The Unbroken. A human commander who could not be defeated. A man who turned every loss into a victory. A soldier who had become a legend. Yuna searched for information about this commander, but there was almost nothing. No photographs, no personal history, nothing from before the war. It was like he had appeared out of nowhere, born from the flames of the conflict. She did not know that the Unbroken was the boy she had left behind. The war continued for 3 more years. Humanity suffered terrible losses. Entire colonies were destroyed. Billions of people died. But they never stopped fighting. Taiho rose through the ranks faster than anyone in military history. He became a captain, then a major, then a colonel. He led larger and larger forces in the battle, and each time he brought his soldiers home alive. His second in command was a man named Minho. They had met during basic training years ago, before the war, and Minho had followed Taiho through every battle since. He was the only person who knew about the silver pendant. He was the only person Taiho trusted completely. "You should take that thing off," Minho said one night, as they sat in a bunker waiting for the next attack. "If the Velans capture you, they might use it against you." Taiho touched the pendant through his uniform. "I made a promise." "To who?" "To myself." Taiho looked up at the metal ceiling of the bunker. "And to someone I lost a long time ago." Minho did not ask any more questions. He had learned that some wounds were too deep to talk about. In the fourth year of the war, everything changed. Taiho led a massive assault on a Velan weapons factory in the Crimson Nebula. The attack was supposed to be simple. Get in, destroy the factory, get out. But the Velans had set a trap. 3 carrier groups were waiting for them. Hundreds of Velan warships against Taiho's small fleet. For 40 hours, Taiho fought a battle that should have ended in his death. He used the nebula's gas clouds to hide his ships. He set traps using debris from destroyed vessels. He sent false signals to confuse Velan sensors. He did things that Velan commanders had never seen before. Things that broke every rule of space warfare. When the battle ended, all 3 Velan carrier groups were destroyed. Taiho had lost half his fleet, but he had won. Against impossible odds, against an enemy that should have crushed him, he had won. The news spread across the galaxy. The Unbroken had done it again. In the Velan capital, generals and admirals argued about what to do. Some wanted to send everything they had to destroy this one man. Others wanted to negotiate, to end the war before more damage was done. The Emperor himself called for a meeting with his daughter. Yuna stood before her father's throne, her heart beating fast. The Emperor was old and tired. The war had aged him badly. He no longer spoke of quick victory. He spoke only of ending the conflict before it destroyed everything. "We will send an envoy to the humans," the Emperor said. "Someone to negotiate their surrender. I want you to go." Yuna felt ice in her chest. "Me? Father, I oppose this war. They will not trust me. That is exactly why I am sending you." The Emperor looked at her with eyes that held centuries of wisdom. "You understand humans better than anyone in our empire. You lived among them. You know how they think." Yuna wanted to refuse. She wanted to run away and hide. But she was a princess. She had a duty. "Yes, father," she said quietly. The Emperor nodded. "You will meet with their commander, the one they call the Unbroken. He's the key to ending this war. Convince him to surrender, and the killing will stop." Yuna bowed and left. The throne room. She did not know that she was walking toward the greatest shock of her life. She did not know that the Unbroken was waiting for her. And she did not know that he was the boy she had never stopped loving. The human flagship Eternal Dawn hung in the darkness of space like a sleeping giant. It was the largest ship humanity had ever built, a mobile fortress that carried 10,000 soldiers and enough weapons to destroy a small moon. On its bridge, Fleet Commander Taiho stood alone, staring out at the stars. He was tired. 4 years of war had worn him down to the bone. He had scars on his body that would never heal, and scars on his mind that hurt even more. Every night, he dreamed of the people he had lost. Every morning, he woke up and prepared to lose more, but he could not stop. Not yet. Not until the war was over. The door behind him opened, and Minho walked in. His face was serious. "The Velan envoy ship has entered our sector," Minho said. "They will arrive in 6 hours." Taiho nodded slowly. Any information about who they are sending? Intelligence says it is Princess Yuna herself, the Emperor's daughter. Taiho felt nothing at the name. He did not know it. He did not know that the princess he was about to meet was the girl he had searched for in his dreams for 15 years. A princess, Taiho said quietly. They must be desperate. They are, Minho agreed. We have won 6 major battles in the last 8 months. Their supply lines are broken. Their soldiers are tired. For the first time in 10,000 years, the violent empire is losing a war. Taiho turned away from the window. They will ask for our surrender. Yes, and we will refuse. Of course. Minho paused. But command wants you to listen to what they have to say. Maybe we can use this to our advantage. Learn their weaknesses. Find out how desperate they really are. Taiho touched the pendant under his uniform. It had become a habit, a small comfort in moments of stress. He did not even realize he was doing it anymore. Prepare the negotiation chamber, Taiho said. Full security? I want armed guards at every door and sensors watching every corner. If this is a trap, I want to be ready. Minho nodded and left the bridge. 6 hours later, the Vulcan shuttle docked with the Eternal Dawn. Taiho watched from a security monitor as the shuttle's doors opened. Velen soldiers stepped out first, tall and elegant in their silver armor. Then came a man in dark robes who walked with the careful steps of an advisor. And finally, she emerged. Princess Yu Anadad. She was beautiful in a way that seemed almost unreal. Her dark hair was arranged in an elaborate style, decorated with tiny jewels that sparkled like stars. Her robes were deep blue, the color of Velen royalty, and they flowed around her like water. Her face was calm and composed, showing no emotion, but Taiho did not notice her beauty. He only saw another Velen, another enemy, another person who represented the empire that had killed his grandmother and billions of other innocent people. He turned off the monitor and walked to the negotiation chamber. The room was large and cold. A single table sat in the middle, surrounded by empty chairs. Human guards lined the walls, their faces hard, their weapons ready. When Taiho entered, the guards straightened their backs and saluted. Moments later, the door on the opposite side opened, and Princess Yuna walked in. She moved with grace, like a dancer or a snake. Her advisor, whose name was Sanwu, walked 2 steps behind her. The Velen soldiers stayed outside, as agreed. Yuna looked around the room, taking in every detail. The guards, the walls, the exits. She was gathering information, Taiho realized. She was studying her environment like a general studying a battlefield. Then her eyes found him. Yuna stopped walking. Her calm expression cracked, just for a moment. Something flickered across her face, something that looked like shock or fear, or maybe both. She stared at him with wide eyes, her lips slightly parted. Taiho did not understand her reaction. He stood tall and met her gaze without flinching. Princess Yuna, he said, his voice cold and formal. I am Fleet Commander Taiho. I have been authorized to hear your proposal. Yuna did not speak. She continued to stare at him, her face growing paler by the second. Her advisor leaned close and whispered something in her ear, but she did not seem to hear him. Princess? Sanwu said, concern in his voice. Yuna finally blinked. She took a deep breath and seemed to collect herself. But her hands were shaking as she sat down at the table. Forgive me, she said quietly. It has been a long journey. Taiho sat across from her. He noticed that her eyes kept moving to his chest, to the place where the pendant hung beneath his uniform. He wondered if Velens had some kind of enhanced vision. Maybe she could see through the fabric. You are here to discuss terms, Taiho said. Speak. Yuna folded her hands on the table. The Velen Empire wishes to end this war. We propose a ceasefire, followed by negotiations for a permanent peace treaty. On what terms? Humanity will withdraw from all colonies outside the Sol system. In exchange, the Empire will return the colonies we have captured and pay compensation for the lives lost. Taiho laughed. It was not a happy sound. You want us to give up everything we have built, every planet we have colonized, every home we have made among the stars. It is a fair offer, Yuna said, but her voice lacked conviction. More fair than you might expect, given our military strength. Your military strength? Taiho leaned forward. Princess, your military strength is broken. I have destroyed 4 of your fleet groups in the past year alone. Your soldiers run when they see human ships coming. Your commanders refuse to fight me because they know they will lose. Yuna's face flushed with something that might have been anger or shame. The Empire still has resources you cannot imagine. This war could continue for another 100 years if necessary. Then let it continue. Taiho stood up. Humanity does not surrender. We do not run. We do not give up what is ours. He pointed at her. Your empire started this war. You killed billions of innocent people. You burned our colonies and murdered our families. And now you come here, asking us to surrender? He shook his head. No. The only terms I will accept are your empire's complete and unconditional surrender. The room fell silent. Yuna stared at him, and now there were tears forming in her eyes. But they were not tears of fear or anger. They were something else entirely. You have not changed, she whispered, so quietly that only Taiho could hear her. He frowned. What? Yuna reached up with trembling fingers and wiped her eyes. You are still the same. Still stubborn. Still brave. Still refusing to back down, even when everyone tells you to. Taiho felt confusion rising in his chest. Do I know you? Yuna looked at him for a long moment. Then she asked a question that stopped his heart. Do you still watch the stars, Taiho? The words hit him like a physical blow. His body went rigid. His breath caught in his throat. That question, those exact words. He had heard them before, spoken in a different voice, in a different time, in a different world. His hand moved to his chest, grasping the pendant through his uniform. Where did you hear that? He demanded. Who told you to say that? Yuna stood up slowly. Tears were streaming down her face now, and she made no effort to hide them. No one told me. I said those words to you 18 years ago, on a beach in Namhae, under the stars, before I had to leave. Taiho's mind was spinning. It was impossible. It could not be true. Hana was a human girl, a strange girl, but a human. She was not a Velen princess. She was not the daughter of an emperor, but her eyes. Those dark brown eyes, almost black, that had seemed so strange back then. They were the same eyes that had watched butterflies with wonder, the same eyes that had filled with joy during rain. Hana? The name came out as a whisper. Yuna smiled through her tears. You kept it. After everything, after all these years, you kept my pendant. Taiho's legs felt weak. He reached for the table to steady himself. Minho took a step forward, worried, but Taiho waved him back. You were never human, Taiho said slowly, each word heavy with the weight of realization. All this time, you were never human. No, Yuna admitted. I was sent to Earth to study your species. I was supposed to observe, to learn, to report back. I was never supposed to make friends. I was never supposed to... She hesitated. I was never supposed to care about anyone. Taiho stared at her. The enemy princess. The woman who represented everything he had been fighting against. The girl he had loved as a child. He did not know what to feel. He did not know what to think that the war was far from over. But everything had just changed. The negotiation chamber had become completely silent. Every guard, every officer, every person in the room stood frozen, watching the impossible scene unfold before them. Sunwoo, the princess's advisor, stepped forward with alarm on his face. "Your Highness, what is happening? Do you know this human?" Yuna did not answer him. She could not take her eyes off Taiho after 15 years. After countless nights spent wondering what had happened to him. After a war that had put them on opposite sides of a galaxy-spanning conflict. He was standing right in front of her. He looked so different. The boy she remembered had soft cheeks and bright eyes full of curiosity and kindness. This man had a face carved from stone. His eyes were cold, hardened by years of death and violence. Scars marked his skin like roads on a map, each one telling a story of battles survived. But when she looked closely, she could still see him. The boy who had held her hand during thunderstorms. The boy who had taught her what human love meant. Minho moved to Taiho's side. "Commander, what is going on? How does the Velen princess know your name?" Taiho's hand was still pressed against the pendant beneath his uniform. His mind was racing, trying to process what was happening. Everything he thought he knew was falling apart. "Everyone leave," Taiho said suddenly. Minho looked at him with shock. "Sir, everyone, leave, now." Taiho's voice was commanding, leaving no room for argument. "I need to speak with the princess alone." "That is against all protocol," Minho protested. "She could be dangerous. She could be armed. This could be a trap. Then let it be a trap." Taiho finally looked away from Yuna to meet Minho's eyes. "I need answers, and I will not get them with armed guards watching every word." Minho hesitated, then nodded slowly. "I will be right outside. Call if you need me." On the other side of the room, Sungwoo was having a similar argument with Yuna. "Princess, I cannot leave you alone with the Unbroken. He has killed thousands of our people. He is the most dangerous human alive." "He will not hurt me," Yuna said softly. "I promise you, Sunwoo. I know him." "How? How can you possibly know him?" Yuna turned to face her advisor. "There are things about my past that even you do not know. Things that happened before you entered my service. Please trust me. Just this once." Sunwoo's face showed his struggle. He had served Yuna for 10 years. He had protected her through political conflicts and assassination attempts. The thought of leaving her alone with the enemy terrified him, but he also knew that Yuna was wise. She did not make decisions without reason. "I will be outside," he finally said. "If anything happens, scream. I will break down the door myself." Yuna nodded and watched as Sunwoo and the Velen escorts left through one door, while Minho and the human guards left through the other. Then they were alone. The silence stretched between them, heavy and thick. Taiho and Yuna stood on opposite sides of the table, neither one willing to move first. Finally, Taiho reached up and pulled the pendant out from under his uniform. The silver metal caught the light, and the strange symbol on its surface seemed to glow. "Tell me the truth," Taiho said. "All of it. From the beginning." Yuna sat down slowly, her legs too weak to support her anymore. "Where should I start?" "Start with who you really are." Yuna took a deep breath. "My name is Yuna. I am the third daughter of Emperor Taiwan of the Velen Empire. I was born on the throne world, in the Imperial Palace, over 200 years ago." 200 years? Taiho's voice was sharp with disbelief. "Velens live much longer than humans. 200 years is young for our species." Yuna folded her hands in her lap. "When I was a child, my father decided to send observers to Earth. He wanted to study humans, to understand why your species was developing so quickly. Most observers were adults, scientists, and diplomats. But he chose to send me as well. Why? Why would an emperor send his own daughter? Because children see things that adults do not. Yuna looked down at the table. Children notice the small things. The way people laugh. The way they cry. The way they hold each other when they are sad. My father wanted a complete picture of humanity, not just the scientific facts. Taiho pulled out a chair and sat down heavily. So you came to Earth. You pretended to be human. You made friends with a stupid boy who had no idea what you were. You were not stupid. Yuna's voice was soft but firm. You were the kindest person I had ever met. In the Velen Empire, kindness is seen as weakness. Children are taught to be strong, to hide their emotions, to trust no one. But you shared your food with me. You protected me from the other children. You taught me that it was okay to be soft, to feel things. Taiho's jaw tightened. And then you left. I did not want to leave. Tears began to form in Yuna's eyes again. My father called me home. He said the observation period was over. He said I had been on Earth too long, that I was becoming too attached to the humans. She wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. I begged him to let me stay. I told him about you, about our friendship. He was furious. He said I had become contaminated by human emotions. He forbade me from ever returning to Earth. You could have said goodbye. The words came out harsh, filled with years of buried pain. You could have told me the truth. How? Yuna asked. How could I tell a 12-year-old boy that his best friend was an alien princess who had been spying on his planet? You would have been terrified. You would have hated me. I hated you anyway. Taiho's voice rose, bouncing off the metal walls. I hated you for leaving. I hated you for disappearing without a word. I spent years wondering what I did wrong, why you left, if I would ever see you again. Yuna began to cry openly now. I know, and I'm so sorry. There has not been a single day in the last 15 years when I did not think about you, when I did not wonder what you were doing, if you were happy, if you had forgotten me. Forget you. Taiho pulled the pendant over his head and held it in his fist. I wore this every day, every single day, through training, through battles, through moments when I thought I was going to die. I never took it off. I never forgot. Yuna stared at the pendant in his hand. It was the symbol of my house, the royal crest of my family. If anyone had recognized it, you would have been in danger. I did not care. It was all I had left of you. The two of them sat in silence for a long moment. Outside, the stars continued their slow dance through the void. Somewhere in the distance, ships were preparing for battle. Soldiers were saying goodbye to their loved ones. And the war continued its bloody march across the galaxy. But in this room, time seemed to have stopped. I tried to stop the war, Yuna said quietly. When my father's council voted to attack Earth, I spoke against it. I told them that humans were not a threat, that we could coexist peacefully. But they did not listen. They saw humans as animals, as insects. And yet you are here now, Taiho said, asking for our surrender. I am here because my father ordered me to come. Yuna looked up and met his eyes. But I did not come to ask for your surrender. I came because I heard stories about a human commander called the Unbroken. I came because something about those stories felt familiar. I came because I hoped, against all logic, that it might be you. Taiho felt something shift inside his chest. The anger was still there, hot and heavy. But there was something else now. Something older. Something that had never really gone away. The war is not over, he said slowly. Whatever happened between us in the past, that does not change what your empire has done. Billions of people are dead. My grandmother is dead. Entire colonies have been wiped from existence. I know. Yuna's voice was barely a whisper. I know, and I cannot ask you to forgive us. What the Empire has done is unforgivable. Taiho stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the faint glow of distant stars. Then, why did you really come here, Yuna? If not to ask for surrender, then why? Yuna stood and walked to stand beside him. They were close now, closer than they had been in 15 years. She could smell the human scent of him, so different from Velen's, but so familiar. I came to give you a choice, she said. The Empire is weak. Weaker than anyone outside the High Council knows. If humanity continues to fight, you might actually win. You might actually defeat an empire that has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Taiho turned to look at her. What kind of choice? Yuna reached into her robes and pulled out a small data crystal. This contains the locations of every Velen military base, every weapons factory, every communication hub. It contains the security codes for our defense networks and the patrol schedules of our fleets. Taiho stared at the crystal in her hand. You are betraying your own people. I am saving both our peoples. Yuna pressed the crystal into his palm. Use this. End the war. But when you win, promise me something. What? Promise me you will show mercy. Promise me you will not destroy the Empire completely. Promise me that when the fighting is over, humans and Velens can find a way to live together in peace. Taiho looked at the crystal, then at Yuna, the girl he had loved as a child. The enemy he had been fighting for years. The woman who stood before him now, offering him the keys to victory. Why? He asked. Why would you give up everything for humanity? Yuna smiled sadly. Because 18 years ago, a human boy showed me what kindness looked like. And I never forgot. She reached out and took his hand, just as he had taken hers all those years ago on a beach in Namhe. The data crystal sat on Taiho's desk, glowing faintly in the dim light of his quarters. He had been staring at it for 3 hours, unable to move, unable to think clearly. Everything he wanted was inside that small piece of technology, victory, revenge, an end to the war that had consumed his life. But accepting it meant trusting Yuna, and trusting Yuna meant accepting that the girl he had loved was real, that she had never stopped caring about him, even after all these years. A knock at his door broke the silence. Come in, Taiho said. Minho entered, his face tense with worry. The princess is still in her quarters, under guard. Sunwoo has been demanding to see her for hours. What should I do with them? Let them speak. They are not our prisoners. Minho hesitated. Taiho, what happened in that room? What did she say to you? Taiho picked up the crystal and held it to the light. She gave me this. Intelligence on every Velen military target. Codes, locations, patrol schedules. Everything we need to win. Minho's eyes went wide. That is impossible. Why would a Velen princess betray her own empire? Because she is not just a Velen princess. Taiho set the crystal down and turned to face his friend. Do you remember when I told you about the pendant? About the girl I lost when I was young? The one you never talk about. The one you have been searching for your whole life. Taiho nodded slowly. Her name was Hana. At least, that is what she called herself on Earth. Her real name is Yuna. She is the princess. She was sent to Earth as a child to study humans, and I was the human she studied. Minho sat down heavily in a chair. That is? I do not know what to say. That is unbelievable. I know. But it is true. Taiho looked back at the crystal. She wants me to use this information to end the war. But she also wants me to promise that I will not destroy the Velen Empire completely. She wants peace, not revenge. Can you do that? Minho asked quietly. After everything they have done? After everyone we have lost? Taiho closed his eyes. He thought about his grandmother. He thought about the soldiers he had watched die in his arms. He thought about the colonies burning, the children screaming, the endless nightmares that haunted his sleep. "I do not know," he admitted. "Part of me wants to burn their empire to ash. Part of me wants them to suffer like we suffered. But another part of me remembers what she taught me all those years ago." Taiho opened his eyes. "She taught me that Velans are not so different from us. They feel joy and sadness. They love their families and mourn their dead. They are not monsters, even if their leaders have done monstrous things." Minho was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I will follow you whatever you decide. You know that. But I think you should remember why we started fighting in the first place, to protect humanity. Yes, but also to build a future where our children can grow up without fear, where they can explore the stars without worrying about being conquered." Minho stood up. "If you have a chance to create that future without more death, maybe you should take it." Taiho looked at his friend with gratitude. "Thank you, Minho. Thank me after we win the war." The next morning, Taiho called an emergency meeting of his senior officers. He showed them the data crystal and explained what it contained. Some were suspicious, believing it was a trap. Others were eager to use it immediately. The debate went on for hours. In the end, Taiho made the decision himself. "We will verify the intelligence first," he said. "Send scouts to 3 random locations on this list. If the information is accurate, we proceed with a full offensive. If it is a trap, we will know before any real damage is done." 3 days later, the scouts returned. All 3 locations were exactly as described in the crystal. Weapons factories, defense stations, supply depots. Every detail was accurate. The information was real. Taiho launched Operation Starfall on the 7th day. Human fleets attacked across 12 sectors simultaneously, hitting targets that the Velans thought were secret. Defense systems that had protected the Empire for centuries fell within hours. Communication networks went dark. Supply lines were cut. The Velan High Council was thrown into chaos. Within 2 weeks, human forces had pushed deeper into Velan territory than anyone had thought possible. Within a month, they were approaching the throne world itself. The Emperor sent message after message, demanding negotiations, offering increasingly desperate terms. But Taiho ignored them all. He had made a promise to Yuna, but that promise did not include letting the war drag on longer than necessary. The final battle took place in orbit, around the Velan throne world. The Empire's last fleet, everything they had left, formed a defensive line around their home planet. It was the largest gathering of warships the galaxy had ever seen. Taiho stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, watching the enemy fleet on his screens. Beside him, in a place of honor, stood Yuna. She had refused to leave. She said she wanted to see the end with her own eyes. "You can still stop this," she said quietly. "If you attack, millions will die. If I do not attack, the war continues," Taiho replied. "Your people will rebuild. They will come for us again. Not if we negotiate now. The Emperor is ready to surrender. I know he is." Taiho turned to look at her. "How do you know?" "Because I know my father. He's old and tired. He started this war because he was afraid, but he never wanted it to last this long. He never wanted so many to die." Yuna took his hand. "Please, give him one more chance." "For me." Taiho looked at her hand in his. Then he looked out at the stars. "Open a channel," he said to his communications officer. "Broadcast to the Velan fleet." The officer looked surprised but obeyed. "Channel open, sir." Taiho spoke, and his voice carried across the void of space to every Velan ship, every Velan soldier, every Velan sitting listening on the throne world below. "This is Fleet Commander Taiho of the Earth Federation. Humanity does not want to destroy you. We did not start this war, but we are prepared to finish it. However, we would rather end it peacefully. He paused. I am offering you a choice. Surrender now, and no more blood will be spilled. Your empire will survive. Your people will live. But you must accept that humans are not your enemies. We never were. The silence that followed seemed to last forever. Then a new voice came through the channel. An old voice, tired and full of sorrow. This is Emperor Taiwan of the Valan Empire. I accept your terms. The war is over. The bridge of the eternal dawn erupted in cheers. Soldiers who had been fighting for years, who had lost friends and family and hope, finally allowed themselves to believe that it was finished. Yuna collapsed against Taiho, tears streaming down her face. You did it. You actually did it. Taiho held her close. We did it together. The days that followed were filled with negotiations and ceremonies. Treaties were signed. Prisoners were exchanged. Borders were drawn. Humanity, the young species that had almost been destroyed, had brought a 10,000-year empire to its knees. But they did so with mercy. Yuna was exiled by her own people. Many villains blamed her for their defeat, called her a traitor, demanded her execution. But the Emperor protected her one last time. Using his final act of power to ensure her safety, she left the throne world on a human ship, headed for Earth. Taiho was waiting for her when she arrived. They stood together on the beach in Namhe, the same beach where they had met as children. The ocean sparkled under the sun, and the wind carried the smell of salt and seaweed. I never thought I would see this place again, Yuna said softly. Neither did I. Taiho looked out at the water. After the war started, I thought I would die in space. I thought I would never come home, but you did. But I did. He turned to face her. What will you do now? The Empire has cast you out. Earth is not your home. Yuna smiled. It was a sad smile, but there was hope in it too. You once told me that home is not a place. It is where the people you love are. She reached out and took his hand. I think I would like to stay here, with you, if you will have me. Taiho looked at their joined hands. The same hands that had held each other 18 years ago. The same hands that had been separated by time and distance and war. I spent 15 years looking for you, he said. I wore your pendant every day. I never stopped hoping that I would find you again. He squeezed her hand. I am not letting you go a second time. Yuna laughed, and it was the most beautiful sound Taiho had ever heard. It reminded him of the girl who had danced in the rain, who had watched butterflies with wonder, who had taught him that the universe was bigger and stranger than he had ever imagined. That night, they sat on the beach together, just like they had as children. The stars stretched across the sky, countless points of light representing worlds and civilizations and histories too vast to comprehend. Do you still watch the stars? Yuna asked, echoing the question she had asked so long ago. Taiho smiled. It was the first real smile he had worn in years. Every night. I kept hoping you would come back. Yuna leaned her head against his shoulder. I am here now. Yes, Taiho said, putting his arm around her. You are. Above them, the stars continued their eternal dance. The war was over. The galaxy was at peace. And two people who had been separated by the universe itself had finally found their way back to each other. It was not a happy ending. It was a new beginning. And for Taiho and Yuna, that was more than enough.